Hello, welcome to all our listeners on NRSMA. In the recent past, we have seen Chennai turn into a disaster zone with army coming in with their boats and the schools turned into shelter homes, hospitals getting completely inaccessible, the roads were completely shut down. So it was pretty much pretty much a major scenes that you'd see after a major disaster. And all this happened because of non-stop rains, which then turned into floods. And then at this point, it's pretty clear that it's a man-made disaster. But more importantly, there have been teams and individuals and groups who have been helping all the people on the ground to see them through these difficult times. And we are extremely privileged to have, fortunate to have Balaji, who is Aid India founder based in Chennai, and he and his team has been relentlessly working from day zero. And right now, when the relief efforts, or at least the short-term relief efforts are slowing down, the medium and the long-term relief efforts are going to kick in. So we'll talk about these things, and we'll see also if Balaji can opine on what is the government response has been and other various aspects of this disaster. So Balaji, thank you very much for being on the show. I know you are hard pressed for time.
A pleasure to be able to join in this program. I know NRSMA has been reaching out to a large number of people, Indians living abroad, and it is thank you for inviting me to talk to you. Good.
Thank you, Balaji. So you've been there since day zero in terms of carrying out all the relief efforts from when the entire area was clogged with water. There was nothing people could do other than having boats or their own taking risks in order to reach out to those people. Could you explain how those initial few days, what were the rescue efforts like?
See, actually there were two phases. The first phase, as soon as the first round of flooding had happened, that was sometime in the middle of November. At that stage, basically our team had quickly formed along with other NGOs. We formed the Chennai Rain Relief Committee. At that stage, we were still thinking of it as a rain issue. And we were providing relief supplies to people, we were going to camps and doing a lot of work. And basically, like several organizations had come together to do that. Actually, honestly speaking, even I didn't understand the gravity of the situation that was going to affect us. It was more like the kind of rains that we had faced in 2005. And so basically, like it was a lot of rains, but it didn't seem like something that was going to be so dramatic or drastic. The second, because it did have an amount of flooding, but it was not of that kind of scale. That then on December 1st, when the flood water started, basically they had opened the tanks and so on. The amount of massive flooding that had happened is just unprecedented. The speed of the water was so high that it just washed away entire complete. I mean, if you take, our team just went to a few villages which we could not even reach. I mean, even right now, Ravi Shankar and is just coming back from a set of villages near Kalpakam. He just called me. He said that there's still water lying in those areas. I mean, this is after so many days. You're talking about December flooding, and right now we're talking about like almost 12 days later. And last few days there have been like almost 7-8 days. There has been no rains now. Still there is so much of water, and the force with which the water had moved was so high. Like in Kotrapuram, there is this very rich industrialist. His house has big, huge iron gates right in the middle of Kotrapuram area. And behind the gate, there is a generator set. And this entire gate, the iron gate and the generator set is right now completely washed out, and it is probably lying at the bottom of the Bay of Bengal. So that is the force with which the water moved. People had crossed the flow of water. So basically the Adayar River overflow, completely overflew, moved across its borders into areas like Ashok Nagar, KK Nagari, Katasangal, a lot of areas. And then of course, even within Adayar Kotrapuram, one of the most affected areas. Then near Tambaram, Mudichur, it had spread all over because many of wherever it could kind of move out of the basic river, it had done that, and the flow of the water was really, really high. The river could probably take about 5,000 cusecs, but actually they had put in almost 30,000 cusecs at the same time. If they had spread this out over multiple days, there were about 6-7 days available. If they had done that, then this kind of massive flooding wouldn't have happened. But they didn't open. So what actually happened is not really rain. In fact, for the first few days, we were talking about Chennai rain relief and rain relief activity.
Right.
Then as we visited area after area, realized that this is nothing to do with the rain. Because rain is a slow process. Water is going to rise slowly. And if water rises slowly, yes, it does create damage, but that is not the type of damage we saw. Actually, what had happened is that it had rained in almost 5 to 6 districts across huge areas. And all of that water usually comes into the catchment area, it comes into tanks, and then it flows into the river and it goes back to the sea. Now that flow, basically, because it had rained a lot, the flow of water itself was high, and then people had not opened up any of the tanks. So the tanks had all been kept full, waiting for some kind of an order to open, and it was all opened at one time. So basically down the tank, above the tank actually it was just about rain. But actually down the tank it was plain flood and a very, very high amount of water flowing at very high speed into areas that had never experienced this kind of thing ever before. So people had no preparation, no information that flood is going to come. When they were opening the tanks, it was done, they opened the tanks at a point where otherwise the whole tank would have burst. So you can imagine the kind of situation under which they opened it. No information was given. People were happily walking across the road when they saw this huge amount of water washing them away. So one area somebody was telling me that 5 people were crossing that water, holding each other. 4 people were able to make it, the other person is dead. That is the kind of speed with which the water was crossing. And you're not even talking about a very large road. It was a small road where this kind of flow was there. At the same place, there was a Bolero kept, Mahindra Bolero, and basically that was washed off into the Adair River into the Bay of Bengal. So that is the kind of flooding that had happened. Within Chennai, for that particular day and the next succeeding days, and rain kept continuing to happen. So for a while, people didn't understand what was going on. Kottrupuram area, one of the areas where we were working, doing a lot of relief work, Chitranagar, that water had gone above the ground floor, the first floor basically, and then the second level floor, half of it was filled with water. That is the kind of level of water that had come in. So 1.5 floors of water effectively in a house. So people were now then living in the second floor. Both had to be in area. So I went into many of these areas. Some of the areas we just couldn't even go in. And then slowly as the water receded, we were able to go. It was like waist deep water where we would wade in, give food supplies, etc. But for the first 2 days, actually, it was disaster. We were not even able to travel anywhere. So just even going around was a big difficulty. So we took trucks and we would keep going and it would keep pouring. So in the rain, we'll have to travel with whatever we could. Then as we started visiting more and more places, in the beginning we said we will concentrate in 3 areas. Then 3 became 10, became 12, and so finally we were working in 23 areas in Chennai. And now it has almost become 40 areas. Because people would come to us and say that at this point there is nobody helping us in this area. So 40 areas in Chennai we have been able to provide a lot of relief material supplies. One thing I should say is that huge number of people started coming forward and saying we will collect materials. The big problem was that we couldn't even go and buy things. Shops were closed. So people actually organized. Wherever they could get things, they would organize stuff. Groups like Bhumika and Real Image, the Chennai Rain Relief Committee, they had organized a huge amount of food production. Like basically, they got a lot of volunteers to cook, and we would take the food from them and go and deliver. Almost 18,000 packets of cooked food we were able to deliver to huge number of people. And basically, what we would say is the government is giving, Rotary Club is giving, then we would not give. We had stationed one person in each place, informing us where we had to deliver. The biggest problem was that many places the cell phone towers were out. Because it was waterlogged, electricity was cut off, so we were not even able to communicate. They had to move into another area and inform people, and then if they are going in a truck carrying the food, then those people would not be able to, they will have to be in area where they could actually get the communication. So sorting the communication problem itself was very difficult in the first few days. We were not even thinking at that point about Kadalur or Kanchipuram because Chennai was so badly affected. Our first few days, the focus was just Chennai. Then as we started doing this, in Kanchipuram, we called up our coordinators. They said it has been limited effect in a few areas. Then because they couldn't go into the other areas because the Pala river had overflown. And as they started going in, I mean, in fact, last 1 week, we have been slowly discovering there are houses, there are complete villages where 5 to 10, 15 houses, I mean, small villages, right? And the houses are completely destroyed, completely washed out. Huts have been completely washed out. Across the state, the government estimate is 1.1 lakh, 1.2, almost 1.16 lakh huts have been destroyed. And Kadalur area, Bhuvanagiri, around that area, Irapalayam, Parangipete, huge number of villages, again, tanks had overflown and still underwater. There are lots of villages still underwater. Many places we have not even been able to reach. Yesterday, from 3 villages, people called us to say that nothing has reached them, and we visited them. Small hamlets, 50 houses. Somehow they managed to just survive and shivering, they're basically just sitting there. Very little food, whatever they had, they were able to cook and manage. They didn't even know that the rest of the world was collecting support for them. And they are completely cut off from all communication. So when they realized that locally we were going and providing things, then they managed, somebody came out of that place, contacted us, came to our office and asked for support. Only then we got to know that these guys are even there. I mean, it's a very small hamlet, so no, it's not even recorded on the map. So places like that we were able to provide support to. So in all, with Aid India, we were able to reach out to 77,000 people. But that's a very, very small number compared to the total amount of destruction. Luckily, we had about close to 1,000 volunteers who had come in. I mean, new volunteers, people like my own students, they got their friends, and we had college students coming in. We had a huge number of people coming in. Each of them would come and take up any work. I was quite surprised. Many of them were willing to walk into slush, like sewage had mixed in Chennai at least. A lot of areas the sewage had mixed with the water. And these volunteers are not even hesitant. Many places they just said, we'll walk into the water. And they just walked into the sewage. And I mean, you won't see this very normally. So girls from like middle class families, upper middle class families were studying in college. They're saying, okay, I will go down and walk. I had a student called Manasa and Vaishnavi. They were like, always I'm going to go and distribute material. And I said that there'll be slush, there'll be a lot of the sewage. No problem, sir, I'll go there and do it. So the kind of motivation with which people entered to do this, like Vishwesh, a lot of other volunteers were doing it. I think it was quite amazing. And so now we are basically supplying a lot of family survival kits. So that will allow them, because once people have gone back into their house, so that they can basically manage for the next 10-15 days. Bhumika has provided a lot of the kits. Actually, this time we are still trying to figure out how we can raise funds, because for long-term relief, that is something that will be required. But for short-term relief, we had to hardly spend any funds because a lot of it actually came in from people as material. People would come with money and say, I'll buy this thing and give it to you. So, in fact, that is something that we were able to supply. And there's a lot of requirement for...
What is the, sorry to interrupt, Balaji, you said about the survival kits, right? What do these kits have in them?
They have rice, dal, they have oil for cooking, and they have some powder, with masala powder, sambar powder kind of thing for them to basically get some sambar. The same powder can be used for some sambar, whatever they feel like to mix and mix. A little bit of salt and an onion. A couple of kgs of onion and tamarind. And apart from this, a blanket, mats, etc. So,
so this is
one of the things that we realized that they don't have a safe place to keep this in. So now we are probably going to provide them a small bucket kind of thing with a cover on top, so that they can actually put that in there. We in fact started working on medium-term relief now with water supply. In the beginning, the first day when I went into distributing food packets, it didn't even strike me. I mean, it should have struck me, but it didn't strike me at that point. So when I started going with our team to get the food and go there, when we distributed food, people told us, food, yes sir, but can we please get water? It didn't strike me that it was raining and there's so much flooding. So the last thing I thought of was that they will need water. But that was in fact one of the first things that people told us that they need, because they had not drunk, there was no drinking water, it's only sewage mixed water. So they couldn't obviously take it from the flood, and they had no vessels, nothing to collect rainwater either. So basically there was no water supply. That was a huge part of the problem. So actually for the first phase of the relief, we were providing a lot of water packets and water bottles. But now for the long-term relief, one of the things we are doing is we have researched and found government approved, there's the Government of India DST project, where they had done some research on a very good micro water filter with nanoparticles, which will do very good filtering of all the bacteria, but also suspended particles which are like dissolved solids, iron and a lot of these things. And so we can take water which may not be very pure and produce out of that pure drinking water. And so we have started procuring this kind of water filters and supplying to each of the villages.
How much does this cost?
See, in the market, if we go and procure it, it comes to about 1,300 rupees. We are trying to get it at about 700 to 800 rupees range. So, yeah, about less than 1,000 rupees per family. And that will provide them with drinking water for the next 5 years. Because they can just use this continuously. A little bit of chlorine added to this will automatically already the bacteria is killed, removed. So a little bit of chlorine will basically make the whole thing work. So,
and you mentioned about And you mentioned about the sewage problem, right? The water is mixed with the sewage and everything. Now, is there any effort from the Chennai Corporation or other government departments to sort of remove this risk associated with the sewage getting mixed, and how are they going about fixing this?
That was the first few days. Even now there are areas where there's still this problem, where it's low-lying area. Now most of the non-low-lying areas have actually cleared of water. The low-lying areas still have water. So like Mudichur, Anakaputtur still has water. That's one of the areas we are working. Vyasarpadi, there are some areas that still have water. Jafarkhanpet still has water. In Kalpakam area, there are still areas with water, Kadalur, etc. But most of the other places, the water has gone away. But there's still a lot of bad smell. People's houses, they have had sewage coming into the house. So right now we are providing them with some bleaching material, bleaching kits, phenyl, etc. So that will basically help them do some amount of cleaning. And now we are also talking to people to see if we can get mosquito fumigation, mosquito repellent, etc. in place, so that can also be done in terms of providing some level of basic security. But the drinking water facility has to be arranged separately, because this water cannot be used for that purpose. But villages, the drinking water will be possible. In Chennai, Metro Water has started supply, and so we'll be able to use the Chennai Metro Water supply to, basically we need to purify it so that basic dissolved impurities as well as bacteria contamination can be removed. That's basically why the water filter. Villages, there are water sources, but we are looking at whether we can take it as some groundwater sources, because that will be a little bit more safer than using it from the surface water source. But cleaning up of the sewage is a huge task. Apart from the sewage, what is happening is now every family, they have lost so many things. Mixies they have lost bed, they have lost mattress, floor. I mean, like clothes are now dipped in sewage, right? So they are throwing everything out. So every family is throwing like huge amount of junk. So cleaning that itself is a huge job. So yesterday actually there was a large effort to get local people to start doing the cleaning. Some of our volunteers had also participated in that. Many areas people were contributing towards doing the cleanup. But I think that is something that ultimately only the government can do in a big way. So government has already got in people from a few other metros, like they've got it from Trichy, from Coimbatore, they've got like sanitary workers to come and work. But without gloves, without boots, etc. In fact, we have supplied some of those people with material. But overall, there is a huge requirement right now to do the cleaning up. But more than the cleaning up, even as the cleaning up will happen, I can expect that in a couple of days the cleaning up will start happening in a big way. What is going to be needed is from the government side also some amount of work, serious work on prevention of diseases. And that's also some of an area that we are going to focus on in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
And the second, there are still pockets. Many people have started winding up their short-term relief. I have told our team that, in fact, our team was also very tired because they have been working continuously every day. And so they were saying like, okay, should we also wind up? I said, no. If everybody else winds up, then we should continue at least for a week or 10 days more, because we'll still keep discovering pockets where we need support.
Right.
And our own teams where we are working, we have places where they require support. Once people go back to their houses, get settled in, then we can stop the short-term relief. We shouldn't get tired so fast. And so I said we should somehow manage to keep up our enthusiasm to continue doing it. And so that's basically what we are going to do.
Right. And how do you manage the logistics of such a massive relief effort, which is with literally no preparation, right? You had so many areas to cover. You had different kinds of requirements to be met with. What are some of the challenges that you had faced in terms of logistically making sure that there is nobody, trying to exploit the situation, or, people are getting the right help that they need at that point in time?
See, actually, first thing is that we were not prepared. I mean, whatever happens, nobody is prepared for something like this. It's not like this happens after telling us, right?
Right.
So, and the scale of the disaster is something that slowly started hitting us. We would go to one area, look at it, oh God, what happened here? And then we go to the next area. It took me like at least 2 days to realize the massiveness of the damage. It was one thing to see some of the things on TV, but actually, even the TV coverage and all that, people are still discovering. Like what they were able to see is that this place, there was this damage that it always looks like pockets here and there. Only as I started visiting lots and lots of places, I realized every place is affected so badly. So it took us, I would say, about 3 days to really, 3 to 4 days almost, to get a sense of what level of damage it was. So first day when I made such plans, when I look back today, it looks very laughable and foolish. We were saying, let's work in 3 areas. Okay. Second day we said, okay, now let's try to do this in 10 areas because there are so many places which are getting affected. And so finally now we are working in 40 slums and 45 villages. And I'm sure, I don't know what scale we are going to continue doing this at, because every day another set of villages gets added in and so on. Right. But, and we were not organized at all, I would say. Luckily for us, 2 things happened. One, we already had a good field presence. Like in Kadalur, we have been doing work in 60 villages before. In Kalpakam area, we have been working. Many of these areas, we already had field people who have been working there. We have been doing an education work. The Eureka program has been going on in these areas. And in Chennai itself, we had people working in Kotrapuram slums. In fact, they were living in Kotrapuram slums. I went into Kotrapuram just to find out if one of the people who is working full-time with us, she's safe. She was in the 2nd floor. We had to actually pull her out and get her to safety. She and her child was there. And one of the, another guy who also works in Kotrapuram, he managed to escape and he came and stayed in our office. So people were coming and using our office as shelter and so on. That's how we got to know also new areas where this was happening, just to find out where our own people were safe. Because many of them are living inside the slums and so on, right? So that was our first starting point. And there what we did was, for each area, we had people who were local, because we were already working somewhere. Of course, new areas, we didn't have local people. Then we identified somebody, 2nd level, 3rd level contact, and then we started working through them. The second thing was, as volunteers came in, we had to place our trust in them. We said, okay, I don't know who this volunteer is. This guy randomly landed up from a college. Maybe I have some cross reference, but instead of sending this volunteer alone for relief distribution, I'm going to send this person with 3 or 4 people. One of them will be one of our coordinators, or that person is already at the ground, then maybe the coordinator is not there. But one person who has come from a nearby slum, one person who has come from this college, one person who has come as volunteer from some other college. People who don't know each other, just bundle them up together and send them. Hopefully they won't do any mischief on the way. And actually, to be honest, not even one case actually had happened of any kind of wrongdoing. Because everywhere where we sent, we were able to actually find out that people are because we had at least one level person at the ground level who would verify whatever we sent. So immediately they'll call. So we say, right now it's coming, we should get this in another 1.5 to 2 hours. And a lot of the truck drivers were fantastic. After the first round of sending, Many times with the truck driver, we would be basically able to use them directly as people would be able to go. We would have a set of people who would count the items, and they would count the items there and say, yes, we have received all of it. But there was confusion in terms of distribution in the first day. Because the first time we started distributing, a lot of people would come to the truck and ask us for material, take the material, shout, because people are also afraid they won't get, they're also agitated, they have not eaten for 2 days and so on. Then we started saying, go back to your homes or you go to the relief camp, I'll give you a token. After you get the token, then 1 hour later we'll do the distribution, or half an hour later we'll do the distribution. And we'll come and distribute it one by one. So, basically the first few days, after I went around and understood the situation, then my focus was entirely on streamlining the process. So the relief distribution process we streamlined. From the 3rd, 4th day onwards, we started doing that streamlining. Then the 5th day, basically I divided up our team into a whole bunch of teams. One team to do the collection, to sort it, to package it, to make it into smaller kits, things like that. Look at the inventory, tell people what is required and so on. Second team to manage volunteers, to look at how they can actually be productively utilized everywhere, and to make sure the volunteers come at different times. Because otherwise everybody lands up at one time and then suddenly there is nobody at one time. So we were doing one team to basically streamline this. One team to basically coordinate the trucks of relief material distribution. One team to look at long-term relief and long-term rehabilitation. One to look at funding and so on. So once we streamlined all of these processes, I think then the things started becoming a lot better. In fact, people came back and told us that they have not seen such an organized effort across such a large scale. Volunteers were very zapped at the way the things were getting organized smoothly. But it took us so much time. I mean, I think the first 5 days, 6 days, after December, I think almost till December 5th, it was a lot of chaos. And it just worked on the fact that people were really trying, were very committed and wanted to just deliver and make sure the things work. For example, the first day I went with a truck. The food was finally cooked. I mean, people said dinner. The problem is when you say dinner, people expect that it will be ready by 8 o'clock. The problem was the dinner was getting ready at near Mount Road, somewhere near Roypeta, Cross Road. And the place where we had to supply was Karamani, Kallukutti, near Kallukutti area, Velacheri Karamani area. Okay. So by the time the dinner finally got ready, because it was such a huge amount of dinner, it was about 8:30. Then we realized they had not packed it. They said, oh, I have to pack it. Okay, then we have to start packing. And we are talking about dinner for 2,000 people. So they started packing. So finally the whole thing got ready only by 9:30. And the trucks were very slow the first day and second day because roads were damaged. We had to go take a long route, etc. Finally, we reached Karamani at 10:30 in the night. And the place where we had to go through boats. It was really dark, no electricity, nothing. The people there said that we cannot go now and distribute. We have gone one round and just given them a little bit of water packets, etc. So this we will distribute next day morning. The 2,000 food packets luckily didn't get spoiled because it was really hot cooked food. And they kept it till the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning, they went and distributed as breakfast. Okay. So, but that level of commitment, that at all levels, people were trying very hard to make sure that the phone was not working, communication was not working. So the Karamani, Kallukutti area where this office was, we didn't know. So they were standing in the middle of the road for 2.5 hours waiting for us to come. So at various points, we had to pick up people, get this thing collected, materials collected. The truck had to go. But I think it was, nothing got wasted. I mean, I should say that I'm very proud of at one level. That people actually contributed in very, very committed ways. Amazing.
Right.
That's what allowed the thing to function.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. Now you mentioned there's a big effort or conscious effort on ensuring the basic, health and sanitation, right? So does AID have experience in conducting these medical camps, or are you planning on partnering with any other organizations involved in this effort?
Yeah, basically AID has done a lot of work earlier with health. In fact, I was involved in a health program. And UNICEF had actually awarded us as one of the 10 best programs in the world, health programs in the world. This was many years ago. And we have a team of doctors who are helping us out, and a couple of groups that are very, very closely been working on health for a long time. So we are working with several such groups. And we are looking at health at a in a kind of 4 different levels. One is medical camps, which is very urgent and emergency kind of situation right now, where we'll be able to provide basic gets doctors to conduct camps. But you cannot get doctors to come and do this almost on a daily basis. So you can conduct a camp and come back and maybe do another camp after 2 months, 3 months. But just conducting a lot of camps in every village itself will take us that much time. Right. So that is one of the activities that we are going to start off on. The second important area is the looking at nurses who will be able to look at diarrhea, malnutrition. They will be from the local area and will be able to make sure that basic paramedical support that is required in the community for preventive health as well as some level of curative support is basically available. So these are trained nurses that we can provide to ensure basic health support is available. The third is ensuring good drinking water, because that alone will stop a large amount of the problem.
Right.
A lot of illnesses spread to water. And the fourth is, of course, to stop mosquitoes. So if we can get these 4 things done, the malnutrition program, child malnutrition, women's health, etc., through the nurses, the camps to identify patients and making sure that some treatment follow-up is happening with the doctors, and the water situation as well as the mosquito issue. So if we can address these 4, I feel that these 4 emergency situations will, and medium and long-term things, will basically resolve a lot of the problems.
Got it.
Apart from this, there's another project that is both very close to my heart and is something that I think I met you in this meeting earlier, right? So a few months ago, I was talking about probably this construction of homes, small houses for people, extremely poor families, huts because huts keep getting flooded, rain, basically water comes inside the house and so on. But I didn't, of course, at that time expect or anticipate this level of flooding. Right. That is something that I've been wanting to do anyway, and we have been doing some experiments in that area. One of the things we definitely desperately need now, given the number of huts that have been damaged, is to be able to reconstruct houses and huts for people, particularly rural areas. Huge number of huts have been destroyed. And these are already poor people, extremely poor people. So one of the projects that we will be doing in a big way, we already started identifying houses that need to be rebuilt, is to reconstruct the hut. And we are talking about a low-cost solution for this. Something that will be under 1 lakh rupees. Basically, like 1 lakh rupees is what, about almost $1,500, right? So within that, we should be able to get a pakka house built. A small house. It's going to be just about 150, 200 square feet at most. So a small house for at the same size as the hut, but more long-lasting structure. So that's a little higher level, making sure that next rain, next cyclone, next whatever comes in, hopefully that house will not get flooded. And at least they'll have some ability to manage. See, one big problem people face is that they cannot save anything. They cannot. They are unable to actually collect. Like every year, they lose something. People living in huts. This year, of course, they have lost the entire thing. Huts and whatever material they were able to save. We're talking about small amount of clothes, blankets, and so on. So having a more permanent structure is the only real solution to both health as well as ensuring that people can have a better livelihood. For example, yesterday, Padmini had gone and visited some of the villages. So she had brought back photos, and she told me some of the, like one woman, very, very poor family. They had lost their first round of flooding itself, their entire hut had collapsed. They were going and living along with another family. Her husband had gone out to see if they can get food, and he got washed away. So she is now left completely supportless. There was one old woman, and people were trying to rescue her. So she was unable to walk. So one guy basically put her on his shoulders and was trying to wade through the water. Unfortunately, he slipped and he fell. And that woman fell down, the old woman fell down, and her hip has basically broken. So she's unable to get up and sit and walk. Now, Now, we already know for older people, hip surgery kind of thing itself is so complicated.
Right.
And for a poor family like this, it's just not even possible. So that is the kind of problem people have. She's lost her hut, she's lost her place, she's lost all whatever little bit here and there they would have managed to save. And then on top of it, she's now in this kind of misery. So when they went to basically give her this thing, she couldn't even get up to receive the rice bags. So Padmini basically put a blanket on top and kept the rice bag nearby and asked somebody to cook and feed her, and then didn't know what else to say. How do you control somebody like that? Nothing to say there. So huge number of people with this kind of difficulties. So really heart-wrenching. I think at some level, rebuilding huts is like a basic minimum that we definitely need to do.
Right. Now, I know you're pressed for time, Balaji, so I'd like to sort of end with what are your thoughts on how people who are not on the ground can help, and in what way you think can help, and also if other organizations or groups who are interested to partner with you, how do you suggest they approach aid?
First I would like to say that there has been massive support within Chennai, but lot of the people in Chennai itself have lost a lot of resources. So for example, while they have been able to contribute in terms of materials and so on, many of the people who contributed had also lost like 5 lakh rupees worth of electronic items, ground floor fully washed away, things like that. Their houses have not got destroyed, but they have lost a lot of material that they had collected. Of course, they will be able to come back to their lives. But at this stage, one of the things we saw was, unlike in the tsunami where a small belt of people had been affected, a huge number of people here had also basically been affected. So financial support has been not very big or forthcoming. Rest of the country, there has been some level of support. I think in the US, people have been contributing. But there is a requirement of a very large-scale support, at least for reconstructing houses, particularly long-term rehabilitation, looking at providing notebooks and books and things like that, education material for children, tuition support and some counseling for children who have kind of got shocked by this kind of disaster that has struck them. So, and of course, health and water and sanitation. So, I would say first way in which people can contribute is to just support financially, specifically at least for house rehab reconstruction, basically hut to houses, pakka houses kind of reconstruction, hut repair, house repair, that kind of support, as well as providing clean drinking water. I think these are two big areas that really need a large amount of support.
Okay.
And the second thing is to look at...
sorry, just on that point. So is there a need for relief material to be actually sent to Chennai, relief material as in, the basic relief that we were providing as part of our short term? Is that still a need? Is that something that still needs to be done?
That is still a need. That is still a need. Okay. But by the time the material reaches from the US, for example, the time would have been far much more longer. Okay. Secondly, it is much more cheaper to basically procure it from Maharashtra or Karnataka or Andhra or even Salem, places which have not been affected. Then we should be able to procure that from there. So that is, but I think basic relief materials, we will get it. There is a need, but we will get it from the local area.
Okay.
What is going to be more difficult to arrange for is long-term rehabilitation efforts.
Right.
So that's why I mean, like house construction, water, looking at like even education supplies, looking at support for tuition, things like that. If people are going to bring things from the US, I would say if there are medicines which are difficult to get, things like that. But nowadays, that's also something that we can procure from most places. Because most of the diseases and illnesses will be related to things that are more common. People with a pre-existing condition who may not have had access to any materials or have lost all the money and so on, they will require medicines. Maybe that can be something that can be supplied from there. But otherwise, I don't think material support is required in any big way. If people are coming here, maybe like for coordinators to use some kind of cell phones for them to coordinate, photograph cameras, for example. anything that is used material of this kind could be useful. Okay. Some used laptops, things like that could be useful, but that is again obviously in smaller numbers because they are mainly required for people to basically capture what is going on and pass on coordination information. Right now, basically, the most important thing would be the reconstruction activity. So, financial and fund support is probably the single biggest thing that is required now.
All right, got it. Thank you very much. So, listeners, you have heard from Balaji about all the relief efforts that have been carried on since day one of this floods. It's not the rains that caused the disaster, but it's the flooding that has actually caused this disaster. And Balaji explained how there's a great need for the funds for helping with the long-term rehabilitation. So you can follow all the activities and updates on aidindia.in. That's the Aid India website in India. And you can go to aidindia.org, which is the Aid India US. So if you are outside India and would like to donate in non-INR, you can use aidindia.org, or within India, you can use aidindia.in. With that, I'd like to thank you, Balaji, for being on the show today, and hope the team continues the great work on the ground.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.